Alright, here I have my Phantom 2 that I'm working on at the moment. What I'm just going to do is fix up some things and basically a bit of housekeeping to make sure things are neat and tidy and know what's what in terms of the labelling. So the first up is to label my bounding box. This is to really set the limits of what exists, so yeah. So I know how big the vehicle will be. I don't need to see that for the time being, and it's a bit hard to see in the wireframe anyway. But if I go to solid view, turn it back on, you can see that glitching over the surface. It's two objects existing in the same space, so it gives me a bit of visual warning. Over at the side here, I've got my first crash at a wheel, but I'm actually going to re-examine that later down the track. So next step, I'm just going to work on the actual Phantom 2 itself. Flipping into edit mode, I'm going to select one of the vertexes and use a Control L to select all the linked vertices. I'm going to go switch to wireframe so you can see what I have not selected, because I'm going to get rid of all of this extraneous stuff so I can focus on the actual car body itself and just that. And I'm also going to hide all these extra bits and pieces, so the cylinder 01 and the Taurus can disappear for the time being while I focus on the Phantom. So as I said in my last video, I've really just sort of set this up so that I can actually get the shape of the vehicle happening. So the first critical step is I'm just getting the surface of the bonnet, and I want to try and create those sort of curves through there, that line through there, or this line through here, that curve through there. I know that's going to divot down, and it's going to be a sort of angle through there, and then this is going to be the other side of the wheel hub. And then moving up there, that's a sort of flat section. That's another wheel hub, which I can model and shape, and then this should be a reasonable curve. Flicking to the side view gives me a better idea of what's going on. Now with the actual images that I'm dealing with, if I flip to the side, and as I showed in that last video, the object properties, I should be able to tweak it if I can find the silly thing. Oh wait, get out of edit mode, select the actual object, and then go into the properties. So I want to make this use alpha and make it somewhat see-through, so I can see my cube line here and just see the edges of it there. Then that should be quite easy to work with this sort of stuff. And if I drop that down to say 0.0 or 0.3, and what I'll do is I'll do the same to the others as well. Although I can't see them from this view, I know that, looking at them, they should be quite reasonable in terms of that sort of stuff. Now, the image is not perfect by any means, but that's why I also have reference images to back up what I'm talking about. So, first up is to tackle this piece. You can see here that there's this line, and all I really want to do is create that sort of shape. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to extrude straight back and pick some random marks along this way to extrude straight back again, and probably the top of the wheel. So you can see I'm using that little point there as a reference mark, and then extrude right to the end. So here I need to drop that line of the bottom line of the car, grab Z direction, and just drop it down so it touches the bottom. And then obviously, because that rises up, I'm going to need to change that line and adjust the tops down. So, this is where we start getting into the nitty-gritty. Grab just in the Z direction, I'm just going to pull that up. This one I'm not even going to worry about yet, but when I get there, it's going to have to try and create that curve through it. This back piece, well, that's going to get really easy because that'll sit just there. This large section on the back of the thing, that's the boot, which now I know is a separate piece, which will make things a little easier. This piece, and all I'm really doing is just roughing out the shape. And hopefully as we go through, it will get easier and easier. So I'm probably just going to be quiet for a little bit so I can just concentrate on what I'm doing. Last little bit is actually at the front here. I've used a box select to select the front and back vertices, as you can see here. Flicking back to the side view, again just extrude straight out the front. Now things are going to get interesting because I've got to try and create a curve like that and try and graft it onto what already exists. So we'll see how that goes. Underneath I can just add some extra detail as a separate piece. This bit though, this bit's going to get interesting because what I really want to do is cut the front off about here and then remove that top chunk. So here's where the next part of the arsenal comes in, is ring cuts. Control R, and if I hover around the shape you can see me adding potential cuts. So that one is probably the one I want, and I can't tell where it goes, so I have to just cancel it and just let it sit there. Flick back to my side view, and then I can do an edge slide, which allows me to slide it up to the line that I want. And this piece I'm going to B for box, but then use the middle mouse button to unselect those, so I can then edge slide the rest of it down. Because that way it sits with the running board that flows up into the wheel hub, which you can kind of see here. Then adding some more vertical cuts, so I'll just Control R, add some extra ring cuts in here and extra detail to basically say, well, where do I want that to hit? Probably the point where it changes from one style of curve into another. So through here it's curving in that way, but in here it's curving down, and there's a point halfway where it flows from one curve into the other. So picking that midpoint is actually of benefit, and then grab in the Z direction and pull that down to match. And as I do, I can get this topology closer and closer to the shape of the car. And this is really what happens when you're modelling, is you start with an idea and you then get closer and closer to what you're working on. The next bit I need to talk about is this little piece out the front here that I want to remove. So X to delete those vertices, but what you'll notice is it's created a hole in our car, and I'll switch to a solid view so you can see it clearly. So you can see that there, that there's a chunk missing from our car. So what we need to do is add that chunk back in. So here, using Vertex select, I can select that vertex, and holding down Shift I select the one across, and I can press F to fill it. Alright, it connects those two lines together. If I actually select 4 vertexes that are connected, I can press F to create a face, which is actually a useful thing in this case. And then here for the bonnet of the car, I can again fill that with a face. So really what you're aiming for here is to have that entire topology as smooth and consistent as possible. Flicking around to the front view, you can see that part of what I've done for the car is just not wide enough. Wireframe, so 4. So if I just select this bit, I'm going to have to slide this out so it hits that side wheel. And then there's bits where the side of the car doesn't quite match. So that's going to become a challenge, because the front of the car, which is this piece just here, if we look at the front, that's too far in. It really has to hit about behind that headlight. So if I grab it and slide it in the X direction, X being the red line, get it in position, that should be about right. But you can tell that that's probably a bit low. And then this piece here should be the front of the car. So again, front view, grab X direction, just slide it out. And really what I'm doing is manipulating vertex by vertex to get that sort of consistent line along the side. So yeah, and then trying to estimate where the rest of this sits. So this piece, if I look from the side, you can see that's just along the bonnet there. This bit, the curve of the vehicle, I'm not going to worry about yet, but I'm going to project it out when I get to it. So here, this piece at the top should be the side of the bonnet, so it needs to keep that same line to that consistent point there. So I probably added this a little too early, so I can show you how to get rid of it. So again, we use edge slide, edge slide it all along the way along so it hits something else, another series of vertexes, and then select all, and then you should be able to find a vertex. Remove doubles will be the feature somewhere, if I can actually find it in any of these lists. But the removing of the doubles, basically if two vertexes overlap and touch the same space, they will be removed. Oops. Okay, we'll just go for doubles. Doesn't tell me. Alright. Mesh. Do we have remove doubles? And it's not on this list anywhere. But there is a feature. I'll have to dig it up and I'll get to you back to you in a sec.